Welcome to lesson 8.5. What impact did the Red River Métis have on the creation of the province of Manitoba? So stick around and let's learn something. All right, like I said, it's 8.5, lesson 8.5. What impact did the Red River Métis have on the creation of the province of Manitoba? In our last lesson, we were learning about the Red River Resistance. This was taking place 2 years after Canada became a country. So the Red River Resistance was in 1869. And we met Louis Riel, we learned about Thomas Scott, and we learned about the first resistance that was taking place and the list of demands that the Métis had on their joining into Confederation. So in 8.5, we're going to take a look at the creation of the province of Manitoba. John A. Macdonald, he is now the Prime Minister of Canada. He wanted to please all sides of the Red River crisis. So everybody that was involved, he wanted to kind of make peace with and make sure everybody is happy with what is about to take place. So Macdonald recognized the Métis provisional government as a legal entity. And he agreed to actually most of the terms that they wanted, which was the language, keeping of the culture, having a say in local affairs and all that kind of stuff. And it seemed like everybody was happy. So in July of 1870, the Manitoba Act was passed. And that made Manitoba the 5th province of Canada. We have Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, Quebec, and now Manitoba. And here were the terms of the Manitoba Act. As in Manitoba, you have your own provincial government. French and English are used in government and in court. 2 members of parliament elected to the federal government, along with 2 senators appointed. 2 publicly funded schools, 1 Protestant, 1 Catholic, which is going to be similar to what Quebec has. 5,600 square kilometers set aside for Métis. Just to give you an estimate on what size, or a similar size, not similar size, but in comparison, the city of Edmonton is 650 square kilometers. So quite a large area of land set aside for Métis. And the final term that you need to know is that the natural resources that are in the province of Manitoba will be under federal jurisdiction. And all unclaimed land, that means, is going to be owned by Ottawa, by the federal government. And then at the same time, they granted pardon to any Métis involved in the resistance. But that was just a verbal promise. That wasn't actually written down. And this is going to cause a problem later on. So we've got this new province, Manitoba. Macdonald, the Prime Minister, sends 1,200 soldiers to Red River to keep the peace, and then to also defend the territory from the United States and their manifest destiny, which we talked about in previous lessons. Problem is that many of these soldiers were from Ontario. And if you remember from the last lesson, Thomas Scott, he was executed for his role in the uprising of 1869. So these soldiers that were from Ontario, they believed that it was their duty to punish the Métis and then to also capture Riel. So what does Louis Riel do? Well, he's a smart man and he escapes to the United States. They've got good ties with the United States, so he's able to go there to seek refuge. Canada wants him back, so they agree not to try him, okay? But they say he can't come back for 5 years. The Métis people wanted him back, and Canada recognized that, so they made a compromise and said, okay, fine, you can come back. We're not going to try you, but you have to stay out of the country for 5 years. And to kind of stick it to the Canadian government, the Métis still voted for Riel. Even though he was no longer living in Canada for those 5 years, they still elected him to be their member of parliament. So his seat in Ottawa is going to remain empty because it's his, and the government in Ottawa is always going to be reminded of this Métis struggle that was in Manitoba. The soldiers, even though Riel was gone for 5 years, and even though Canada promised not to try him, the soldiers continued to punish the Métis for all of their involvement in 1869. They jailed them, they beat them, they killed them. It was a constant thing between the soldiers and the Métis. It was a very unsafe situation for the Métis. All right, I want you to head over to your notebook and complete the questions for this part of the chapter.